February 6th. I'm going to call this council workshop to order. Thank you all for being here. We got no old business. Not that I know of. New business. So introduction, I do want to thank you all for being here. As you know, as you've probably followed, the work we've done, we put a lot of work into this project. Our goal tonight is very simple. We want to make sure you have as much information as possible, not just the council, but also residents, stakeholders, anybody watching. We just want to make sure you're up to date on where we are. Next week, a week from tonight, the plan is to have a special city council meeting to ask you as council members to put this on the ballot. It's kind of a simple idea. I think you'll see this tonight in some of the presentations, that this is worth allowing the residents of Bryant to choose. It's a big decision as far as the future of our city. It's kind of that simple. Do we want to invest this in economic development and what it means for Bryant of the future? And so that's kind of where what we're talking about tonight is giving you information in order to kind of make a decision about that next week. So we've got, first we'll have Shane Knight. I have to give him a lot of kudos and appreciation for the work that he's put in, also the Chamber of Commerce, all the work they've put in, and kind of what you're going to see tonight, hear tonight. We're going to hear from Tim Fournier, our Public Works Director, on kind of, all right, what if this is a question, a good question, a legitimate question, what if we invested this in infrastructure, which is always on the minds of our residents. I'm thankful to have Jack Trumper here from Stevens to talk about the numbers. This will be the third time, if you allow the voters to choose, it'll be the third time we've kind of reallocated this half-cent sales tax. And then we have an alternate tax proposal from Thomas Mears, who's a Bryant resident, who has spoke a few times. Councilmember Meyer has spoken up and said, hey, we need to give this resident some time to share his alternate proposal. So, and then we'll have public comments. But a lot of this tonight is just information, so you can kind of digest those things and hear from all these different folks before you have to make big decisions a week from tonight. All right, so Shane, you come on up. Shane Knight, CEO and President of the Greater Bryant Chamber of Commerce. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for this opportunity. You have a handout before you. We will go through that. But what I would like to do is take you through some presentations, some which you have seen already, some you have not. We have done through the Chamber a tremendous amount of work, both communicating with industry leaders from the booking agencies, through management companies, through operators that have contacted both myself, contacted the CMAR, Mr. Rick Wilson, asking, is this venue still going to happen? And I said, that's going to be up to the voters of the city of Bryant. But if the Chamber of Commerce has our wishes, yes. And they said, good, we're sending you a letter of intent. I have had two pro formas from nationwide companies. One of those pro formas, you've got some data in front of you that we will decipher at the conclusion of this presentation. I will share with you that pro forma is from a nationwide company called the Oakview Group. Oakview manages 450 venues across America, including here in Arkansas, the Fort Smith Convention Center and Symphony Hall. And they have done an in-depth market study on the viability of this venue in Bryant. And they have some projections there that I'll share. But I want to go through with you some of the things that have not changed. And then I want to walk you down a path to kind of give you a visual concept of what a venue could look like, what a potential venue could look like, and how that venue would reshape the financial viability of our community, the 5 years that you see in front of you, but also for generations to come.
Power on the side.
Oh yeah, thank you. Here we go. Ready to roll. I'm hitting the button. There we are. So we're going to stay with the same location. The footprint is still the same, and I will show you a footprint of a venue that we have our eyes on as far as a model of what the venue in Bryant could look like. We're still looking at this 15-acre tract on the north side of Highway 5 across from the marketplace. I will share with you that my conversations with our businesses and marketplace have been nothing but supportive. They see the opportunity for increased foot traffic. I have had conversations with restaurant owners there that look at an opportunity for increased hours. And I think the enthusiasm for this project is represented by the number of businesses that are seated here tonight. They see this as a huge plus, okay? So the site has stayed the same. I will share with you, if you haven't already known, since this came under an MOU, the property to the east, there's 2.89 acres that have now come up for sale. I bet you've seen the for sale sign in front of the ice machine, okay? And I've had some great conversations with RJ about his ice machine. Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of your ice machine. So the enthusiasm, the excitement is definitely growing. You see the 3 yellow pin drops. Those pin drops are points of conversation that I have had with MetroPlan, that we have initiated with the Arkansas Highway Department on potential locations for traffic lights. So I want you to know that those discussions are on the table. There have been no promises made, no commitments, anything like that on behalf of the chamber, for the city, for the chamber, or from our state legislative body. The commitment that has been made is if this project moves forward, we will have those conversations on where best to locate a traffic light if it is indeed necessary. Okay, so I want you to know those discussions have been had. They understand that traffic flow is of the utmost importance. The ingress and egress into this facility must be done so that it does not impact our neighborhoods, especially coming off of Dearborn Circle or Lowry. We've got to protect that, and that traffic flow has to be funneled in and off of Highway 5, all right? What is going to be built? That has been the question all along. And what we are looking at is a facility that has addressed some initial concerns that have come from the residents. This will be a completely indoor facility. That means we have drastically reduced noise. Okay, I can't say eliminate because you just never know. All right, it's reduced footprint. We're looking at about a 12-acre footprint, give or take an acre. This will allow for natural buffers around the facility to protect the neighborhood to the north and the neighborhood to the west. It gives our architects the opportunity to use that extra land to build something that is both curb appealing, but something that this city can be proud of with that extra land. Traffic flow will be channeled off and onto Highway 5. I will show you as an example of that when we look at another venue. And we're also now looking at a year-round venue to optimize revenue, something that's 365. Okay, while an outdoor amphitheater is appealing and it is financially lucrative, just like with any outdoor facility, it's going to be closed during a period of time of year and you're not making any money off of it. All right, and if you have any questions, by all means, stop me midstream and I will be more than happy to answer. What we're looking at is a destination venue like no other in the state of Arkansas. The models that we are looking at, there is not another one in the state. Little Rock, Northwest, Fort Smith, anywhere, okay? This is not a symphony hall. It is not an orchestra hall. This is a multi-purpose venue that will address many needs and wishes from various organizations throughout our state. This is a venue that will increase and sustain our economy for generations to come. Not only from tax revenue that the facility will generate in and of itself, but the residual income that will be from the visitors to this venue that will shop, eat, spend the night right here in Bryant. We have a blueprint that's already in place. We have studied a number of facilities, square footage, cost, operations, viability. I have met with those that have submitted letters of intent. I have met with the companies that have submitted the pro formas, and we've all looked at the type of venue that we envision, and we've run it by them. Let me read this to you if you'll just indulge me for just a moment. You know, you get almost 50.
Almost.
Mark, I didn't mean anything by that. I'm just saying.
I'm well on the other side of that. I don't know what you're worried
Why it's
about.
already you?
This comes from an individual who represents an entertainer that their interest in this facility is extreme. He said, let me back up here. I totally get, this is from me to him, I totally get that, especially given your client and his connections to this area, they wanted to be here tonight, but they kind of said, hang on. He said, yes, needing to avoid any press because we are working on an announcement that we could place this project under if it happens. Just would be a bigger bang in my opinion. Our entertainment attorney is really good and loves this idea. I said, excellent, let's get together, we'll continue the conversations. He says, I'm more than happy to help in any way. We want to be a part of this. The entertainment world is a world of its own, but a fun one. Your venue will rock, trust me. After looking at the examples you're going to show the council, y'all are on the right track. So, what we're looking at is a venue that was built in 2021. It's called The Factory. It sits in Chesterfield, Missouri, just on the northwest side of the city in the suburbs. The Factory is a 52,000 square foot facility that has a capacity of 3,000 and the flexibility to entertain from 350 to 610 groups. It's built in such a way that you can refigure. You can do weddings, you can do a prom, you can do a corporate gala, or you can do a full-blown concert. This building has such flexibility that it increased the economic viability of it tenfold. In looking at this, here's some shots from the inside. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine this style, not necessarily this facility, but this format, this style of what we're looking at to capitalize on the amount of money that is available to us, okay? Because we've got to be smart with the money. But every square foot capitalized and utilized for increased economic impact, all right? This is the back part of the floor. What they've done is they've designed a facility where you can rent out different areas within the facility. So if you're a corporate group and you want to have an event, but you're small, you can rent this facility at the factory. And just this part right here, this is the back of the floor. There's a concession stand back here, and you can see that a little closer here. And I'm just giving you some examples of the type of facility that we're looking at and how flexible it could be. All right? This is from the back part of what I just showed you, looking back out onto the flat floor and to the stage. This is a corporate event where tables are set up on the flat floor, a gala, whatever it may be. I will share with you that I have spoke with one of our leading caterers in the county, shown him this concept, and he said, I want in on this. Shane, if the city of Bryant builds this, I can think of 5 clients right now that will come back to Saline County. No promises. I'm talking about the opportunity. I'm talking about giving the city and the residents, the chamber and this council, a piece of equipment, if you will, to go after these things. Here is the stage looking out onto the floor. You see the balcony. You see the raised seating along the perimeter. You go back to the back, directly behind the chairs, and that was the concessions area that we were looking at. Immediately at the top, on your right-hand side and your left-hand side, you see that wood trim. Those are concession areas as well. They built this facility in 2021 during construction in the height of COVID for $25 million. Puts ours into context. Construction prices have dropped dramatically. Okay? We have a CMAR that has a track record of leveraging pricing to their advantage in their building projects. Going back to the floor. Oh, no, I hit the wrong button. This is from the top of the balcony looking down. This is from the side looking onto the floor. You can see the concessions immediately on the floor to your left-hand side. You can see the concessions directly in front of you at the top. So we're talking about a facility that has so many uses, so much availability to our community. The opportunity to bring in different styles of shows, from a country or a rock concert to a comedian to a gala, a number of events. The opportunities are as endless as they can be. When you have the operator that has those connections that we have been talking with, you give them this type of facility, the flexibility, it just means money. All right, this is from the back looking forward again. This is the back concessions. This is a seating chart of the factory to kind of give you that blueprint idea here. Here is the footprint. You see the pin drop? The pin drop is on the factory. The parking lot that is in the black in the front and the parking lot that is to the left. That is a 12-acre footprint. That is the factory's footprint. 12 acres fitting inside the 50 that we have, or the 15 that we have the MOU on. This is designed, you see the ingress and the egress right there on County Road 40. That is the main entrance to the factory. And talking to the operators of the factory, they do have the emergency exits out to the east, but all of their traffic is funneled right here so they can control parking. This is a street view of the factory. Now, will it be this one? No. But what I'm wanting you to do is see the concept. I want you to see the possibility of the venue and what that would look like from a 5-lane Highway 5. All right? So, here are the benefits. 30,000-foot benefits. This is a city-owned revenue source with extremely limited liabilities. The city is not going to have to be in a position to hire new employees. You're not going to be in a position that you have to maintain it. You're not going to be in a position you have to take care of the utilities. All of that is the chamber's responsibility in securing the operator. To make sure that it is ran properly, that it is staffed, that it is taken care of, that insurance is carried on the facility. Now, there are some liabilities from the city standpoint. It is a city-owned property, so minimal insurance like your parks will have to be done. But as far as liabilities, accidents, things like that, that's all on the operator. All right? It's a facility. Let me get my notes over here if you don't mind, please. It is a facility that has a significant, what I call a compound annual growth rate, both in tax base and property value. Here's what you should consider very strongly. Bond counsel is going to give us an update on the history of this bond and how it has been paid for over its last 2 uses. When you as a council take in those financials into consideration, this has to be a major part. That when this thing is paid for, and he shows the growth rate of the city and the payoff rate under a zero growth platform, and you know we're growing 3 to 5% a year. And that's without some of the new development that's coming. When this is paid off, the city will own an asset that, I don't know, what if the operator in 10 years says, Mayor, I'd like to meet with your finance people. My group wants to buy this. And we're going to buy it at a very good price. Real estate has done nothing in Saline County but skyrocket. And it's going to continue to skyrocket. The city will own an asset that will appreciate year over year. let's just say it does happen. And they say, we want to buy it. Well, are you going to continue to run it? Yeah, but we want to own it. Imagine if they come back and said, we'll give you 30 million for it. We'll give you 25. We'll give you 35 million for it. You turn around and sell that, and you still have an operator in place bringing in entertainment that you get the sales tax revenue off of. I'm just telling you there's possibilities, okay? Here's the other thing. This facility brings the city what I call fresh capital rather than recirculated capital. Rather than the current population continuing to do what we do, and we do it very well. We go out to eat, we shop, we're recirculating our capital. What we're looking for is a facility that brings in fresh capital to our economy, that takes our sales at our local shops that are at this level and injects fresh capital and bumps it to the next level. Increased tax rates, increased revenue for our businesses, and when they see fresh capital rather than recirculated capital into an economy, that is an enticing factor for new businesses, whether it's hotels, restaurants, shops, whatever it may be. When an investor is seeing that fresh capital, those are the opportunities that they're looking for. So what's our next step? You as a council to place this on the ballot for May 13th and give the residents of Bryant an opportunity to go thumbs up or thumbs down. That's the big step. Just give them a shot. Let them decide. If they vote for it, we're ready to roll. If the residents say this is not for us, then we gain a very valuable piece of information, that tells us as city leaders which direction we may need to go. Okay? We are ready. The chamber stands ready to launch an aggressive promotion campaign. I will share with you that local businesses have committed right now $35,000 from businesses to promote the campaign. Our local businesses see this as nothing but positive. So much so that dollar amount is setting ready to go. We will continue to meet with vendors and operators and build the foundation for a first-class operations team for this facility. Food and beverage, merchandise, booking agents. They're lined up. They want this facility. We're not going to go void. Okay? They're there. They're ready to go to work, and they see Bryant, Arkansas as a prime location for such a venue. Here are some of the promotion materials that we've already started working on, from billboards to newspaper to social media. Bryant Arts and Music. Our businesses have asked for signs that they can put up in their windows to ask their constituents in Bryant to vote for this. And we're going to ask the residents to vote yes twice to reappropriate and build a bank on May 13th. Okay? In front of you, you have some financial information. This information was taken from a pro forma that was submitted by an interested party to be the operator. And they gave us a 5-year pro forma. They estimate in year 1 for all events that they would book, from comedy to country music, rock music, the things that they would book. Let me just walk you through, not through every one of them. I'm just going to give you the first one, and then you guys can take it from there. They expect or estimate 127,775 tickets sold in a calendar year. Now, they said, here's the benefit, guys. While you're building this, we're going to have an operator ready to go. That operator then has the construction time to start working their networks to let them know this facility is coming, to start building and booking their talent that far in advance. So they see that as a great opportunity. Now, let me share this with you. When Live Nation and Ticketmaster went through their issues and they had to disband, what it did was it freed up thousands of entertainers that are now free agents. Okay, they're not under 1 or 2 umbrellas. They're now free agents. And they have the opportunities now to work with any operator and any booking agent. And those booking agents now have the opportunity to talk to any entertainers. That has done nothing but open the door of opportunity for just about every singer, musician, comedian on the planet, because they're hungry to perform, all right? So we look at the average ticket price, and I still set it at $100. I went to the factory and I looked at the number of events that they've got going on. I looked at 2 other venues, and they're averaging, now that they're up and running, you got 3 years with the factory now, 3.5. And they're averaging 10 events a month that they book. Look at the average ticket price. If you go to Simmons, okay, and I work Simmons with my wife on our dance stuff, we have to raise money, so we work the concessions. You're $12 for a beer. You get used to that. Yeah, you work them concessions now. We got to pay for dance. $12. The Simmons just finished a country music concert with one of our local celebrities. Their T-shirt, his was $35, and their guy said, Shane, you go to a bigger name, you're going to spend $50 for a T-shirt. So I asked them, I said, this ticket price right here, is that fair per person? They said, actually, you're a little low, but go with it because it's a nice round number, $100. So if you take 127,775 tickets sold at $100, that's $12,777,500 in gross revenue off 63 events. Okay, you see the events over there on the far right. At 3%, first year estimated tax revenue off this venue is $383,325. That's just the concerts and the events that the booking agent puts in. You have a corporate gala and the caterer is on site. Whatever is delivered to that facility and disseminated, distributed, sold in that facility is subject to local taxes. So if that caterer that I mentioned starts bringing back to Saline County and Bryant hosts these types of events, and they're selling several $1,000s worth of food in their buffet, that's taxable. Bryant makes money off of that. Anything that's sold out of that facility is subject to local taxes. So those numbers that I just shared with you, they don't count the other events that take place, okay? Bumping down, you see that at 2,000 capacity, the factory's 3,000 capacity. So we're being realistic with what we're looking here in our potential capacity and what fits Bryant, Arkansas. I also went on ahead and put, well, what if it's 1,700 capacity? Ticket sales stays the same. How can we get that number of ticket sales, 127.75, and if our capacity is only 1,700, we'll need about 75 shows. Okay? So I'm just giving you that 5-year pro forma that this company submitted. Now, here's another source of revenue. Bump down, parking. Okay? If you have a 2,000 capacity venue, our ordinance under P&Z requires 6-to-1 parking on a commercial facility. 6-to-1 parking is 334 parking spots. It costs $20 to $25 to park at Simmons, to park downtown, to park at Hot Springs, whatever it may be. Let's just say we did it at $10. Okay? That generates per event, $10 per event, $3,340. I took a 5-year estimate, just made it simple, 5 years. Took the same numbers that you have up here. We had 101 events. You see the income that it would generate on an annual for each capacity, 2,000, 1,700, and 1,500. If we stay at 2,000 capacity and we sell parking for all of those booked events, concerts, comedies, et cetera, that the booking agent and the operator does, you're looking at $337,000 additional income for the city. Okay? Far left-hand corner. There's also other avenues of income for the city. Naming rights, sponsorships, naming rights to the concessions area, naming rights to the green room, naming rights to the stage. Here's you another one. City owns it. We set a rental rate. Those rental rates are also paid by the promoter and the booker. And they're also paid by the corporate people. They want to, if they want to have a gala there, they pay a rental rate. So there are a number of other revenue sources for the city other than taxes that are generated. Okay? So there's some numbers. These numbers were presented to us by the Oakview Group. They are a highly reputable, experienced operator. So, guys, again, council, the chamber sees this as our opportunity to make Bryant a destination community, to bring in fresh income, fresh capital, to give the city an opportunity for a venue that we can hang our hat on, something that we can be more than proud of, something that we drive by and we go, I'm glad we did that. All right, any questions for me?
Great job, Shane.
All right, I'm going to yield the floor.
I want to
Okay,
say,
sorry.
I want to say before, real quick, before you ask a question, and you'll see this, next week. We've been working on a contract, just so you all know kind of how this will work. The city will contract with the chamber to, book the operators, promoters, third-party vendors, okay? And part of that agreement will be the chamber will receive some of that revenue for their work, but then the city will have the majority of that revenue would come back to us. How we want to use that revenue, where we would put it is completely up to us down the road. So just, I didn't know if we filled that gap from where we were to where we are now, that the city and the chamber would work out that contract to do the legwork to bring these vendors in and make sure it's managed appropriately and vet all of this work. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Now, you said that there's a new sign out there in front of the property.
Mhm.
John Martin comes along, and the new farmer's equal is already out there on his. So how do we keep these other people coming in and buying out from underneath us?
So, that property is 2.89 acres that is adjacent to the 15 that we have an MOU on. I would say
So that's
this.
not part of the 15 acres?
No, sir, it's not. No, sir, it's not. No, the 15 acres that we have an MOU on, it's separate from that almost 3 acres that another owner, it's not even the same owner. It's a different gentleman that has property right next to it. What that gentleman sees is, he sees opportunity. And rightfully so. He sees growth. He sees an opportunity for him and his family to say, hey, I'm gonna put it up for sale and see if we can bring in another business. Because that is commercial property. So it is another growth opportunity business-wise for our city. Whomever may buy it.
Could we incorporate that with the 15 acres?
It would be an additional expense with the bond money. And right now, the 15 acres that we have is more than enough for the footprint of the facility. And by sticking with just the 15 acres, rather than our previous MOU on the other land, we were able to put 1.7 million back into the construction of this facility, which is highly advisable.
And one other thing is.
Yes, sir.
We're showing capacity of 2,000 people here.
Mhm.
Why do we not have to think that?
So what I've done is I have given you some numbers to be conservative, to keep our expectations in realization. Our CMAR will work his magic in the square footage. He will look at materials from concrete to steel to every piece of material that will go in that, including our fixtures, our furniture, and our equipment, everything that needs to be done to run the facility. If he sees an opportunity to go up, he will take advantage of that. But what I wanted to do was to give you some numbers that we felt, based upon our discussions with the operators and our initial discussions with the CMAR, numbers that are realistic and what we feel are achievable under current conditions. Okay?
Been used with similar capacities in the area or in the state?
So you've got, Robinson Center Music Hall is 24 to 26. You've got, the Oaklawn, which is, if I'm trying to remember my numbers, 1,800, flat floor, okay, about that. But you've got these similar facilities around. But what is unique about this is this facility is being built with current entertainment expectations, okay? Robinson Center Music Hall is a symphony hall. They'll do a few comedies, they'll do a few, a few bands, old school bands, but it's not conducive to what entertainers are looking for today. This type of facility at 2,000 max capacity, Jack, to your point, and what Chesterfield was able to do, 3,000 is what they're looking for. Because the entertainers are now shifting and have and will continue to quality over quantity. They're not so much interested in the 30, 40, 50, 60,000 venues anymore. They want intimate, the experience economy that I have talked about, okay? And what we're able to do with those numbers as well, council, is we can capitalize on the ticket prices. When you have a venue that is 3,000 or less, and you have that experience where the stage experience is much greater than being way up in the balcony and what we've always called the nosebleed, they will pay more per ticket to have that experience. And the booking agents and the entertainers are capitalizing on that.
Got one other one, it's toward Rick, if you don't mind. Rick,
Rick?
will you be able to use local contractors, vendors and all that as much as possible?
I made this statement, one or two meetings, in the past. We have our company is a commercial real estate developer. We're vertical. We have our own general contracting company. Actually have two. We have our own licenses. We have project managers, project coordinators, superintendents. So we'll provide all the general contracting services. Typically with most of in our industry, in our company, we have what we call our bread and butter tenants, which is the people the companies that we build to suit for all over the country every day, and we live by those guys. Whataburger, Seven Brew, you have one right down here, Walmart, Walgreens, Tractor Supply, and others. And then there's the specialty projects like yours, and we're always in a community whereby we have to treat the community with respect, especially with regards to this one being it's gonna be community owned. So that's a long way around the barn to say yes. Other than general contractor, from all the sub-trades, we'll utilize as much local talent as available. The reason I identified all those other type projects, we have traveling teams that make up about half to 2/3 of our team for construction and when we're going around the country in order to make the cost fit our tenants' needs. We're used to being a CMAR, we live and die by budgets, and this one will have the same thing. So the first opportunities will go out once we have full set of plans, and we'll go out to all local subcontractors. That'll be heavily advertised, social media and otherwise, so be sure and pass that around. Any that are qualified, licensed, and insured properly, and have the right skill set and the staffing and the team that can finish this for us in a timely manner, those will be the guys that we'll go to first, with the understanding that, we're being a CMAR, our contract requires that we live and die with this city with a given amount of money, whether that comes out of our pocket, and the time as well. So, there's your yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for me, Mayor, Council? Yes, sir.
Weird. Do we have commitments from any hotels? Is it gonna be just like before with those restaurants, hotels, facilities that will we need to support this?
What you have and what we have done is we have entertained 2 hotel groups for on-site visits. We have entertained 2 restaurant groups for on-site visits. The 2 restaurant groups are separate from the hotel groups. So what they are watching is, they're watching you to see what you as a council does and how this project moves forward.
Shane, talk a little bit about, the difference and kind of where we are now, the things you've learned since Christmas Eve to today, and how and you and I have had these conversations a lot. We both believe we're in a better
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
Even though and this has been on purpose to kind of process these things publicly, right? So you guys have all kind of been part of the conversation, the changes, and why we feel like we're in a better place today than we were.
So what we've been able to do, once that information was given to me, and once it got out, we have had the interest in this venue has been awe-inspiring, okay? And what it's done is this, by talking to so many different operators, talking to so many different booking agents, and bringing and seeing their ideas and the venues that they've been a part of, the venues that they've had success in, okay? We have been able to broaden our dream, broaden our thinking and what this venue should really look like, rather than maybe a venue that was catered to one specific desires of an operator. We're now going to have a venue that really is more universal for us as a community. Because what these other operators have done is they've delved into that gala aspect. They delved into the event aspect. And they all uniformly have said, Shane, you're better going with that flat floor stage and seating, but have different facets within your venue that you can rent out. Because Bryant Family Pharmacy, and I want to use you as a successful company, may say, you know what, so-and-so's got a band, and they want to entertain us, so we're going to have a big Christmas party, but Shane, I don't need the big floor. This venue will be designed in such a way with those flexibilities that you could accommodate 75 people in a band in a confined area with a fabulous environment around them and enjoy that, and they rent that section. So talking to these different operators and these different booking agencies across the board, it was unanimous with them. You need that multi-purpose event style facility that gives me, as your potential operator, wink, wink, I hope, and I said, yep. It gives me the opportunity that I can go and recruit talent that I haven't been able to because of the limitation in the style of venues. So it really opened up that window, if you will, to where we could sit back and say, okay, let's make this now a facility rather than it's catered to one specific aspect, one that would be beneficial to our community, not just 5 years down the road, but hopefully much like the age of the Robinson Center, 85 years down the road. And it's still making the city money because it's flexibility. Okay, that's what we learned. And it's been great. I mean, Anna's here with us tonight. She can tell you, she's heard my phone conversations, she's watched my pacing, she's listened to my negotiations, she's listened to it all. And it has been nonstop. Okay? Talking with different operators and booking agents. And they call us. All right? I hope that answers your question.
Can I ask you one more then?
Come on.
If you're getting all these phone calls, are they all positive? Or do you?
I have not had one operator or one booking agent tell me, Shane, I just don't think that's going to work. Okay? Some have submitted letters of intent. Some have submitted their pro formas. One right now, was it Global? What was it? ASM Global is working on their market study. Some of them have told me, Shane, great idea, great building. Let's see what your council does. Okay, because those things cost money to conduct, and they're waiting. All right. You got a question?
Oh, yeah, you know it.
Come on.
Put my
So,
glasses on. I'm close to 52, so,
Is this the contract?
well, it's a more philosophical question.
Okay, so Shane, just so everybody knows, we've been kind of hammering out what this contract would look like between the city and the chamber. We've had Ryan Bowman, our bond counsel, we've had our city attorney, Ashley Clancy, looking at it. I wanted council to see a draft. I sent that to them today, just so they could I could get any concerns, if there's anything we need to hammer out between now and next week. And so you guys have seen that, and we've been working on it. So Shane's seen it.
Okay, so my question's a little more philosophical. So fiscal responsibility lies with the chamber, or with the council, not the chamber. So, you know, it seems that there's gonna be a long string of people involved in the viability of this project. But ultimately, the financial responsibility rests over here. So, you know, I'm wrestling with that. So how can the council be assured that the facility is going to be successful outside of the things you've already said? How can we be assured that the venue's gonna, you know, be booked, be viable, and generate at least some minimal revenue and impact in the community?
Because the city assumes most of the risk here.
A few $1 million worth, yeah.
You do assume the risk, but as your bond counsel is gonna show you that risk based on the growth rates and things like that. I understand, you gotta put the risk over here. And then you've got to look at my responsibility to secure the operator. And then the operator only makes money if they sell tickets. Okay? So the operator's gonna come under a contract. And that contract is gonna be a length of time that matches the contract of responsibility for the chamber. Because I have to ensure that the operator is taking care of the chamber. Okay? We're gonna be paddling the same boat upstream, and doggone it, we better be paddling the same. All right? That's my responsibility, and I take that responsibility. But for the operator and the booking agent to make money, they have to sell tickets. And for them to book a venue and pay rent and not sell tickets is their responsibility. So they have the built-in incentive. When they pay rent, you better sell tickets. Okay? They want to make money. And it's just like within the industry. You don't want to be known as the operator or the booking agency that tanked a facility. Because then that's going to have repercussions down the line on the other facilities that you manage. They got merchandise that they're responsible for. Their entertainers want to sell tickets. Mark, if you're an entertainer and you're with a booking agent and that booking agent's not selling you tickets, you're going to fire that booking agent. You're going to go get somebody else. Okay? So there are some faith issues there. Okay? But is that not with everything that we endeavor on? Whether we build another park that has swimming pools and basketball courts and pickleball courts, we're in good faith that the residents are going to utilize that. That people are going to come and book tournaments. That people are going to pay to have ball games there. So everything we touch has got an element of faith built into it. Okay? What I'm asking this council to do is to take advantage of the breath of fresh air that you have between a chamber of commerce and a city that says we're going to work together and we're going to make this happen. You've got a business community united behind this.
Shane,
Sir.
just for the fact for everyone to hear, how many members do you have in this Chamber of Commerce that are behind this?
So you got the board sitting out here and they're unanimous. Right now, let me give you today's number on our membership, because I have went door to door, 526 members. Have I hit all 526? I don't have enough in me to get that done. But the ones that I have visited with in your neighborhood over there, Jamie Gaston hits me every time I go in there. When's it happening? When's it happening? When's it happening? When's your signs going to be ready so I can put signs up? I think that's contagious. Okay?
Sure, let me say something real quick. It's a really good question, Walter. As former Parks Director, one of the things that we kind of faced when I became Parks Director was the expectation of tournaments at Bishop Park. And there was a challenge there because of things that had happened in the past and how do we, so basically what we had to do was we had to prove to tournament directors who rented the facility that even if it flooded, your tournament's gonna happen, okay? And that took some time, but eventually we built the relationships with the tournament directors that now we're booked a year in advance. As soon as we open the weekends, they're booked, okay? I think, so there was a learning curve between the time Bishop Park was built and we got there. A lot of learning curve, because we didn't have, at that point, when Bishop Park was open, there maybe wasn't anybody that kind of knew that had those connections or whatever. I think where we had the difference here that gives me a lot of confidence is between if the residents say yes on May 13th and when this thing opens, the Chamber of Commerce has stepped up to say, we will take on the responsibility to build those relationships and connect ourselves with because at the end of the day, Bishop Park's successful because we have a great facility and good people working there and relationships with tournament directors that want to be there. And so there's in my mind, it's similar. So we'll have this time between the vote yes and when it opens. The chamber said, look, we'll do the legwork to make sure we have the relationships with those promoters and do that for the city. And so in my opinion, that gives me a lot of confidence because we got people that will get out there and get that work done to make those connections. By the time this thing opens, I expect it'll be booked with these relationships that will probably last for years because they'll come here, they'll have great experience and they'll want to book in the future.
So to the mayor's point.
That's kind of how I thought about that question, Walter. Thank you.
Walter, to the mayor's point, right now, my focus has been, and it goes kind of to your question, Jack, a few moments ago. We have enough talent right here in this county, and we've got talent that you guys may not be aware of that's in this industry, that has called me and said, when can we talk? We have enough talent in this county to keep this facility booked with top-notch events and make money. And when you marry your local talent on those levels to a local venue, they have a vested interest in it that cannot be measured. They want to see it successful because it's their name and their businesses that are now tied. I also want you to go back and I want you to think about another local venue that we have that has the same relationship between the city, the commission, and the chamber and the success of that venue. Little Rock Convention Center and their convention has the same relationship with the chamber. City of Hot Springs and the Hot Springs Convention Center has the same relationship with the chamber. Successful venues in the state of Arkansas have that relationship with the chamber where the chamber serves in this capacity. And when they're working together as we are right now, all of those venues have been deemed successful. Okay.
So,
All right.
Quick question.
Okay.
The area that you expect visitors to come from, we're not just talking Saline County, what's your anticipation? How wide an area?
So what we're looking at in my conversations with other venues, their total attendance, roughly 35 to 40% of that attendance is a 2-hour drive. Outside of what we're looking at as the metropolitan statistical area. Faulkner, Saline, Garland, Pulaski, a little bit of White, a little bit of Lone Oak. That metropolitan statistical area, just sitting under south of 1 million. They anticipate 35 to 40% coming from that and outside. They will come up to 2 hours away for these types of venues and events. And I have to sit back and go, that's accurate, because council, I know what my kids do. I know what my family does. They're in El Dorado 3 or 4 times a year. They're in Northwest Arkansas at least twice a year. So I have to look at my own crew and go, they validate what I've been told by industry experts.
great question.
I will share this with you, and I'll close on this, Mayor. If we looked at the amphitheater in Northwest Arkansas, my conversation with my counterpart at their Chamber of Commerce, open roughly 5.5, maybe 6 months out of the year if the weather is good. Yes, it is a very high attendance facility, okay? But their global economic impact was $23 million to their local economy. A little over 9 of that was hotels. And he affirmed, 35 to 45% of the people that come to that will drive 2 hours and they spend the night. Which makes sense. In my talk with the operators, they're saying you're looking at an event starting around 7 p.m. We'll unload the facility between 10:30 and 11 p.m. If you've got a 2-hour drive and you've had a few Michelobes or whatever you've had, you're getting a room. And you know that already and you've booked your room. That's why these hotel development companies are watching this, because they know there's opportunity with fresh capital coming. All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you, Shane. All right, Tim, we had several questions about, why not infrastructure, and Tim will tell you this, when I asked him to present this, I said, you don't feel any pressure, right? Obviously Shane just presented this, but I wanted him to feel the freedom to say, as Public Works Director, what if we went after, use this 30 million for infrastructure and be completely upfront and honest, no holds barred, tell us what you think, so.
First of all, I need a different place on the agenda, because I either follow animal control presentations, or I gotta follow that, like, I don't ever get to go first. The second, like the mayor said, so it's a little awkward standing up here saying, infrastructure always needs money, we always need to replace something, this and that, and then saying, I don't really think this is the place to invest this money in. After continued conversations and the planning we've done in-house and the master plans and stuff we're working on, but down here. So, yes, Shane, I stole your graphic, but I figured since this is what it's about, I'll go ahead and use it. So, the sales and use tax, reappropriate the bond on 5% to go back into the system to build the venue. If you have bond structure questions, please ask Mayor, Joy, Jack, or Ryan. But I am not the specific guy on that, I'm just telling you what we're looking at. So, enterprise funds. Here. So when we're talking about enterprise funds, what are we talking about? So Public Works has 3 enterprise funds out of the 8 divisions. You got water, stormwater, and wastewater. I have no idea what this that bullet point, but and water and wastewater also houses water billing 50%. So according to our adopted Bryant 2025 budget, they are departments that fund themselves based off of rates, fees, plan reviews, impact fees, that kind of stuff. Ideally, we use that for daily operations and funding of the bonds, specifically the infrastructure fee that you guys passed a little over a year ago. That is dedicated strictly to water, wastewater bonds, and nothing else. We also have a special revenue fund, and it's one out of 8. That would be the streets department. So it's funded by state turnback, half-cent tax, 30% or 1% different tax. It's a governmental fund, but it's managed by the Public Works. This is all straight out of the budget book also. So when we talk about infrastructure, I'll use the term hidden cost, right? Because 90% of it nobody sees. It's in the ground, or it's hidden behind a fence, or it's usually not the prettiest stuff to look at. And keeps it in the ground, keeps it out of the way for other stuff. So physical infrastructure, that's water pipe, streets, wastewater, lift stations, that kind of thing. Money for infrastructure, yeah, we always need it. It is almost always aging. But is this tax issue or bond issue the proper use for that? So there's, in doing some little bit of research, I learned about social infrastructure. And I had no idea what that was until this, so I learned something. So social infrastructure is what transforms cities from collections of buildings and roads to communities worth caring about, which is schools, restaurants, parks, entertainment, areas for people to gather. So it's just another type of infrastructure that is outside of what we typically consider. And you've heard us say all the time that sewer grows the city. Well, sewer is also growing the county right now. I think that we need an economic driver that creates possibilities within Bryant's physical boundaries for potential to grow. There would be hotels, restaurants, and that experience or that economic driver needs to give people who come here, families that live here, a place to gather, and when they leave, they have a positive experience that will spread the word and get more people to come. I'm gonna start taking speaking lessons from Shane too. So drawbacks, if the voters choose, you choose and the voters choose to apply this reappropriated bond money to infrastructure, it takes away from the city's, ability to borrow. It will not increase sales tax, I mean, I should say will not. Likely will not. It'll go back into repairing what we have now or replacing what we have now for future growth. You'll lose the power of possibly paying it off early, and you lose the power of having an asset you might be able to sell and make money. And then with that reduced borrowing power, if you choose down the road in 10 years, 15 years, you wanna build something else, but it's gonna be tied up in the infrastructure for 30 years. The other part is, how would we spend it fiscally at this point? We worked on a water master plan that's adopted, wastewater master plan that should be ready pretty quick, stormwater master plan that should be ready relatively soon, feasibility study. Where do we dissect the money and put it towards where your return on the investment is worth it in the infrastructure world? The other thing is, anytime you add new infrastructure, you're gonna add new maintenance costs, you're gonna have to add new personnel, new equipment. So this one big bucket of money isn't going to carry long-term goals for us. Like I said, we've been busy, so water plan was adopted. You guys were gracious enough to allow us to spend $900,000 out of the ARPA for design. That's about a $12.5 million project when it's all said and done. It also involves, the south plan also involves, it's a water tower and line extension. Wastewater master plan is still in draft. One of the things we knew we needed to do was look at lift station 5 and a new design and rebuild it. It's the largest lift station in the city. You guys gave us 1.5 out of 1.1 million out of ARPA to go towards that. The water and wastewater rates master plan, we need to adopt both master water and the rates need to have the water master plan and the wastewater master plan adopted for capital projects in that before we can finalize that. Stormwater master plan is in its final stages right now. We should have that coming to you relatively soon. Again, that's working to improve stormwater management existing. One thing I'd like to talk about stormwater, when we did this master plan, we had them look at private drainage, open other ones. The city chooses to go fix those things at some point in time, that will become our asset, we have to figure out how to fund the maintenance on that. There's another additional cost, even if you do get it fixed. Where else? Streets, so the pavement analysis was done a couple years ago, well, 2 years ago really. So an RFQ will be going out, it's under legal review right now, to get a company in here that does the same thing as the other master plans. Here's the conditions of your street, here's a 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan on either preventive maintenance, reconstruction, overlay, etc. I can tell you just from very high level cost, if you gave me $30 million to do the roads right now, I'd spend it on one road. And that's all. And that road's life might be 10 years. So, back to the funding. So I touched base on some of this already, but the water and sewer rate study is in the process of the wastewater master plan. Infrastructure fee that was passed just to fund water and wastewater bonds and loans that were presented already, that we already knew that they were going to, lift station 5 being one, South Plain being one. The street turnback funds, when we get the, we'll call it a streets master plan back, I would anticipate that we're gonna need to find a funding source to help our streets. Then we talk about how we fund projects. We don't typically fund a group of projects into one. South Plain's kind of the exception. It's South Plain in the line, but the line needs to be done for South Plain to be, for the tower to be successful also. So you kind of group those together. Those will be bid out as separate projects. The meters was one project. Leah Circle, which is NRD loan, one project. Spring Hill is one project. That's NRD. South Plain, you hear about at the end of this month's council about the funding, private funding. So when we fund through NRD, there's a conglomerate of goals or, there's a whole bunch of stuff we have to do. When you do it through private funding, it's usually a little less strenuous. So we kind of pick and choose on which project, which way we're gonna go. But the other part about NRD is you can get low interest rate, but there's also things you can get, some benefits you can get from, like, including cybersecurity. It might drop that interest rate a little bit lower, or other benefits. Yeah, and then, the other thing about NRD is if we fund through them, we can't do any of the construction in-house. It all has to be outsourced. So if we come up with a project that's just $1 million that we know we could do in-house, it's still gonna outsource it to somebody and pay them extra money. Like I said, it's a little awkward standing up here telling you that we always need money in infrastructure, but, speaking to other staff, other people in the industry, it would be really awkward to mix enterprise funds or enterprise departments that are supposed to fund themselves with something that's supposed to be a sales and use tax, and then limit the city's ability in the future to possibly borrow money to do something else, whether it be build a park or building or police station or whatever it would be. Questions?
Questions?
Did I convey that right?
No,
It's a lot easier when I talk to
Very good,
someone.
no, very good. All right, Jack, talk to us about, all the history in your, we got our team, Jack here, and our team from Cruise, been working with us for some time now, right?
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years?
20 years, I have personally, so Mayor, members of council, it's great to be with you all. It's actually, probably been longer than that. I do want to mention my teammates. Paul Phillips is not here this evening, but we have David Downs and Susan Dumas with Cruise and Associates. And of course, as mentioned earlier, bond attorney Ryan Bowman, who you all know, who is part of your financing team to help with this transaction on your sales and use tax. I wanted just to kind of give you all a little overview of how this would work. Of course, you're going to the voters, and there'll be two questions. One question would be the permission to rededicate or pay off the old bonds, the 2016 bonds, 2016 B bonds. If you were to not do anything today, those bonds would pay off in approximately December of 2028. The second question would be the new money piece, which is for the BAM facility. And so this is called a rededication, which is mentioned earlier. Y'all have done this 3 times, and you've taken existing half-cent sales tax as your bonds have paid off, because that whole tax goes to pay off that debt. It goes straight to the trustee pays off the bond issue. And so we're looking at a ballpark of bond issue size based on current market, and the rates on this bond issue will be taxable rates. They'll be taxable to the investor, which means the investors that buy your bonds will pay income tax on their interest earnings. The reason it will be taxable is because the call date on the 2016 bonds is not until December 1 of 2026. That's called an advance refunding. It has to be done with taxable bonds. And then the facility needs to be done with taxable bonds so that you all can do everything that Shane had mentioned, because if we're tax exempt, it has to be strictly for governmental purposes, which is, you mean you can't hire an operator, you can't advertise, you can't charge, you can't do all that. So one thing that helps mitigate the higher interest rate, because it's taxable, is the fact that this is a mandatory redemption bond, which means the whole tax goes to pay off the loan early. So with that being said, we're looking at ballpark around a $42 million bond issue that would net the city $30 million in project funds. If there's 0% growth in the tax, it would pay off in approximately 23 years based on the last 12 months collections. If you get 2% growth, it will pay off in 18 years. If you get 4% growth, it will pay off in 15 years. And if you get 6% growth, it will pay off in 13 years. The 6-year average growth rate on your sales and use tax has been 6.7%. So you've got a good range of 0 to 6%. We are structuring this with a 1.2 times coverage ratio, which basically means for every $1 in payment that you have $1.20 in revenue coming in. And that extra money, that's what goes into prepay the loan every 6 months. So this is something that the city of Bryant has done, as mentioned twice before. We anticipate probably a 7-year optional call date. Market conditions really kind of dictate a lot of that, but we'll probably be somewhere in that range, which what that means is, in that time frame, then if the city has other needs and you want to use your sales tax to fulfill those needs, then you can go back and rededicate again at that time. So, the tax collections have, like I said, have grown dramatically over the past several years. Back in 2019, your half a cent generated about a little under 2.4 million. In 2024 is about 3.3 million. So it really has had tremendous growth. So one of the things, Bryant's bonds, as you all know, have always been well received in the marketplace. We see no issue with the marketability of this issue, and it will be a great project, assuming you all take this vote to the voters and the voters approve it. So let me stop and see if there are any questions.
Any questions?
Do you mind to go through those percentages for me one more time, the years?
Sure, on the projected payoff?
Yes,
We
please.
have to. 0% growth, 23-year payoff. 2%, 18 years. 4%, 15-year projected payoff. And then 6%, a 13-year projected payoff. You bet.
Jack, you said, current rate of growth, 7.5 years, you would project that if the city had other needs, could do this again, could take this to
It's an
voters.
optional redemption date. Every bond issue has what is called an optional redemption date. We call it a call date. And investors want to know that they buy your bonds, they're going to want to know that they're going to receive that interest income for a period of year because they like the credit, they like the interest rates. And so what that means is you cannot prepay the issue early. I mean, you could, but it would be taxable rates, but you would not have enough pay down by then. So in 7 years, your scheduled annual principal payments will be made, your mandatory redemption payments will be made, and then very similar to what we're doing now.
Right, we're doing that.
Very similar to what we're doing now.
Let me ask you this, I'm sorry, I should have asked you this earlier. 2016, some of you might know this, were we in a similar position in 2016, that when we went back to the voters for the Parkway and the fire stations?
I honestly don't remember. I mean, I'm sure you were. The question is, I do probably bet it was a current refunding as opposed to advanced refunding because that issue is all tax exempt.
Gotcha.
That's probably the difference between the two because this one's not callable till the end of next year, so that's why it has to be taxable.
But if the city leaders at that time, 7.5 years from now, with the current growth, nothing new,
Why, it's Wade, he'll remember.
yeah, Wade, remember? If the city leaders at that time said, hey, we've got some significant things we wanna take to the voters, at that time we could.
Oh, most definitely. And if it is a current refunding, in other words, in that 7 years, your refinancing portion of our tax piece would stay the same, but the new money piece could then be done as tax exempt bonds.
So, would it be true that at that point, if the voters approve this, at
Excuse
this,
me, real quick.
yeah,
The refunding portion could be done with tax exempt, not the facility.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
go ahead.
but the facility would then be free and clear because it would be a completely new bond, is that true?
That is correct. It would no longer have a bond issue attached to it.
Okay,
That's absolutely correct.
all right, thank you.
Jack, you mentioned $42 million bond issue,
Yes.
30 million for the project. The only number you didn't mention is the 12 difference between them. Could you just explain where that 12 is?
Oh, sure. The difference is, one, we've got to pay off the old bonds. And the outstanding balance on that issue is $12,995,000. And so what we'll do is we will do what we call net fund, the escrow fund. So we'll take that money, we'll take the interest payments and the principal payments till December 1, 2026. We'll invest in what we call slugs, which stands for state and local government securities. It will earn interest plus that principal will make those payments. And then on that date, those bonds will be paid in full. And then the other portion is a debt service reserve, which we anticipate will be a half funded, which would be 50% of the maximum annual payment, or we might even do a surety bond, which would eliminate that. We just have to see what makes the most amount of sense. And then I've estimated a cost of issuance, which would include your bond attorneys, your investment banks, your trustee, your escrow agents, everything involved at about 1.52%. That's what makes up the difference between the par amount and the 30 million. But now, let me mention this. If you all approve this, and we come back next Thursday, in the ordinance, it's going to have a little bit of a higher number. And the big difference there is because we're going to have a not to exceed number. And so to protect ourselves for any unknown interest rate moves or anything like that, to protect ourselves, we'll typically size it with a maximum annual payment on the debt service reserve, knowing fully our plan is to do half of that. So we can always go down, but we can't go up. And I'll explain that again, and we'll discuss that again and answer your questions next week. But I just wanted to let you all know about that. It's, in other words, it's better to have it not need it than need it not have it. You bet. Thank you for your question.
One more question, Jack. You submitted some numbers that were on, an earlier workshop.
Correct.
If council members need to go look back at those details, is that still pretty close to what you're talking
Yes,
about tonight?
the only thing that changed is we added the projected payoffs based on percentage growth.
Okay,
That was it, yeah. Like I said, 2016B right now, it's got a stated maturity 2040, projected to pay off in December of 2028. If you do nothing, we use the same, yeah.
Okay.
Plus, and we checked, and our interest rate assumptions, we still believe are still good today.
good. I just say that in case somebody wanted to look at a specific attachment,
Sure.
those were part of an earlier workshop.
Sure, and if there's any questions, obviously contact myself or our partners at Cruise.
Oh, outstanding. Thank you, Jack. Thanks for all your help on this.
Oh, you bet, our pleasure. Thank you all for the opportunity to work with you all. Any other questions?
All right.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, Thomas Mears, Bryant resident who's spoken a few times in our public comments, has been working on an alternate proposal. We want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to.
Here's, I'd like y'all to take one of each, if there's a little bit more, there's one on each side, just take one. There's probably a little bit more, so if anybody else wants one, I'd be glad to give that. Alright, so, Thomas Mears, y'all seen me before.
Yeah.
Just to give a little bit of background, it's hard to say kind of what I totally wanted to say in the normal 3-minute public comment, but I have almost a decade experience in personal finance, financial modeling, so this is kind of sort of what I do. But this is totally for talking about this tax, the bond issue, and sort of projected economic growth. I just wanted to say, kind of apologize that some of this was, it's really hard to figure out what the actual payoff date is. But, so thank you for, the Mr. Gentleman from Stevens. But I don't think that really affects this. It just sort of moves the graph back and forth a little bit, if you kind of understand plotting. So I wanted to say is the data I'm getting for this, the sources, is literally just the sort of economic projections provided by the mayor a couple of months ago. I think about beginning of December. And then the rest of it, any financial data from the city is directly from the city financial reports. So that's all I'm using for this. So on your chart, I have 3 lines, and we're going to start and go through each of them. And this is sort of what I sort of predict or kind of think will happen based on numbers. I'm using a growth rate for the city of 3.9%. That's basically the historical growth rate ignoring 2020 and 2021. Because like there was that big spike and then immediately just, if you average the last couple of years, it just goes back to 3.9. So I'm just treating it as a 3.9% growth. I'm directly talking about, I mean, I understand the city has all sorts of fees and, property taxes, all these different sorts of revenue sources. I'm only talking about in here usable sales tax revenue. So that's stuff that is not servicing a bond or doing anything, like, it's not going towards bond servicing interest, financial things. So I just wanted to sort of, those are like the ground rules that I'm operating under. So this is, I'm kind of taking a different tact here. It's more of what will happen, not necessarily with the facility or the tax, but there's some other things that are in play on the playing field that I think are really important, that really sort of influence what I'm thinking should happen. So the first one, the bottom line, is do nothing. Nothing happens. We don't do an election, or the election, it gets voted down, nothing happens. The bond goes away, the sales tax is reduced, and we go down. The problem is, and you all acknowledge this in the budget, is we're all of a sudden going to be hitting a fire and police pension shortfall. I believe the number was like 1.2 million. Problem is also, there's not really many ways to raise city revenues, or at least raise taxes, except for a millage increase, which in the budget says it's only around $415, I believe, $1,000. And that still leaves a big shortfall for the city to look at for revenue sources. So, you have to have a property tax rate. No, I mean, you're already really, at 2.5%. And then you have no bonds or interest. So I estimate in 2028, please forgive me, this probably would have a bond payoff, but in 2028, just projecting forward a few years, we have about usable sales tax revenue of about 19.2 million. And that's still with having a shortfall and stuff, but you would, from a sales tax point of view, you would have 19.2 million estimate. Again, financial background, past performance does not predict future gain. But we have like a long history of economic growth data for the city, and that's just what I'm projecting. That's the bottom line. Do nothing. Here's what happens. You're gonna hit that brick wall, plus also we're having an issue with police. I think y'all have already talked about this. The state police increased their pay raise. So we probably would need to give a huge pay raise to our police to keep it viable for them to stick around. So that's scenario one. That's just sit back, nothing happens. Any questions about that? All right, number two, venue. The middle line in the chart. The slightly less dark line. $30 million to construct. Of course, we'll have to pay for it with bond. But I would like to remind you that that requires interest payments. I'm modeling around, because here's the thing. We were previously paying in the low 2% interest, because when we first financed these bonds, it was a much lower interest rate environment. I'm sure somebody in this room has probably refinanced their house, and you're probably laughing right now compared to what interest rates you're getting. So I'm looking at, from what I was hearing from Ms. Meyer, which again, thank you for helping me. Ms. Meyer are saying we were looking at, I believe, around, I was just using, it's about 3.75%. So that would, over the life of what I was projecting, we would pay the bond off. Given these economic growth numbers that were passed, we would pay it off around 8.3 years. So we would be paying a total of $5 million interest. That is money that the city would never see. That's just gone to interest, just gone. And that's equivalent to about 12 total police officers a year that could have been paid for with that $5 million in interest. So just wanting to put that out there. The other problem is the anticipated revenue is only slightly above the pension cost with optimistic growth. So I'm using the $1.8 million projected in total sales tax revenue. That includes the venue, that includes economic growth of the city, And so when I look, so that's when you see this number at the bottom, 20.9, that's like all of that, and that's sort of the optimistic model from the growth figures. So you can kind of see that when we have like a 1.2 million shortfall, it's probably going to keep increasing over the years. That's not much more than the do nothing approach for what this is. So in other words, it's extreme risk that economic growth doesn't match expectations, and that number will be lower. So then you're back again to almost square one, which is, oh, wait a minute, we're going to have a revenue shortfall, can't do anything about it. Because we've already raised the taxes to 3%, and then you'll still have to raise, property taxes or something like that. Plus, all y'all will have to have this extra responsibility of managing this venue. So that's another sort of responsibility on top of what you have right now. So again, it's risk that the economic growth pans out. Yes, it could happen, but, I think about finances, advising people what to do and not, and that sort of thing. It just seems like a big risk to me that it might not. Yes, stuff could happen, it builds and stuff, but what if it doesn't get all the way up? You're still hitting that ceiling of stuff that you need. So that's what I'm projecting with those. This is, again, the optimistic numbers right here. Could be more, a little bit more. I don't really see that. It could be less. So, and that's again, in 2028, I was projecting total usable sales tax revenue of 20.9. Again, remember, that 5%, 0.5%, you're not seeing. It's actually still at 2.5%. So that's what's going on there. Does anybody have any questions about that? So, going on, now it's the top line. This is my proposal. So again, I don't want to be just a naysayer. I want to offer solutions, alternatives, and stuff like that. I really want to, see the city thrive and do good. So, it's simple as this. Take that 0.5% sales tax that is financing the current bond and just reroute it to general fund. Now, I'm going to be really open-ended, and I'm not going to really make a sort of proposal of what y'all need to do with that. I mean, you could put it into the pensions, fleece raises, and then use it to pay off, and the other half of it to pay off the bond early.
This is a workshop, right?
Yes.
So we can, is that even legal?
It's a good question. Let me finish and that's a good question.
I mean, again, this is a very high level thing. I mean, you could chop it up and say this percentage goes to that, and that percentage to go to that, and and all in this stuff. I'm trying to make it as very high level as possible. It's very open-ended. So it also would instantly increase sales tax revenue by 20%. My point with that is, it's like with the economic benefit of the other venue, you're have to wait for it to be constructed, which I anticipate is maybe a very conservative 2 years. And then you have to wait for all the other anything else to move in, like restaurants, hotels, and stuff like that. So this would be, as soon as possible, it would just be like, boop. 1 month you're down here, 1 month you're just up 20%. Just instantly like that. No buildings, no waiting for construction, nothing. This is sort of like a sidecar sort of thing. Doesn't have to be done, but I really want to put this idea out here. This would probably be, if you were putting all this on a ballot, it would be a totally separate issue. Would be to, not necessarily eliminate, I think that's probably a bit too strong, but reallocate all the allocations of sales tax that are currently on the books from previous ballot initiatives. So it's like you have this amount of eighths for this department, this amount of eighths for that department. There might be a way of saying, well, historically this department or that department is constantly in a shortfall, this department is constantly in a surplus. So it may be an interesting thing to sort of audit that and kind of take this time where we have a ballot issue and just sort of reshuffle these things so we can more efficiently allocate funds that we're already getting. if that makes sense. So it's just, I'm not saying this is what's going on, but it's, for example, if police is always getting more, but fire is always getting less, you could maybe combine those two so you can move them back and forth instead of always having it stuck in these one funds. Just an idea. It's very open-ended, not saying, hey, move this to here, but just putting that out there. So if you were to do this with the sales tax, and this is talking directly to the council and not really sort of to like, citizens' perspective, but this means like in the mayor's state of the city, you wouldn't have to do any subcommittees or anything else research for doing extra revenue sources. It's just there. It's just reallocate from away from a bond. It's just done. 20%. There, instant. Yes, it requires a ballot initiative, but it's a lot less effort than having to do all that. Also, we wouldn't have to raise the property tax. Y'all wouldn't have to deal with venue operators or contractors or doing any of that kind of like paperwork supervision for the next who knows how many years it would take to do that. Yeah, and the revenue would be available immediately upon payoff of current bond instead of waiting for venue to be constructed and up and running. So, I'll look specifically at the mayor's State of the City address. This would fund the cost of pensions. It could fund police salary raises to counter state raises. It would also allow, once this other bond is finally paid off, you could allow the city to self-pay for certain infrastructure without resorting to bond issues. You could do like microfinancing of smaller projects on a much more agile approach. It would also keep the property taxes lower to attract homeowners and businesses. Because certainly one of my things is I would like the city to keep these base costs for businesses and for homeowners as low as possible to make it attractive to like, why not, Bryant? So I'm just estimating in 2028, sales tax revenue would be 23.1 million instead of these other two numbers. So I'm going to be a used car finance guy and say, which of these numbers looks better? Any questions about that?
Any questions?
Thank you for presenting an alternate idea. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And I think you asked about legal, we couldn't do any of this without the vote of the people.
Of
Is
course.
that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm just saying, taking the bonds and putting it into a general fund.
No.
You could, I mean,
This
it would
isn't-
all have to be a ballot initiative. It couldn't, the council couldn't do that without the public's approval.
Sorry if I wasn't clear on that, but this is not doing another bond. This is letting the bonds expire and just have a straight 0.5% sales tax directly into city funds. So it's like redirecting from bond servicing and going back instead to a sales tax directly into city accounts.
Even that bond measure, when it sunsets, so does the tax.
Sure.
So any reappropriation or renewal of the tax would be a vote of the people to reinstate the 0.5%.
Of course. That would be in part of this issue.
Thank you.
I have a question, it may not necessarily be from Schmears, but the 12 million that we're talking about that's left on the bond, how long before, if we did the do nothing, there's still $12 million out there that's gotta be paid at some point,
Right.
so.
Sure.
What was the time frame?
2028.
2028 is when that would actually be paid.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, I think a lot of the issues that we're talking about will be done by then.
So, I mean, I guess my counter to that would be to have some other kind of issue on the ballot initiative where you would like refinance just that last portion to pay it off, like quicker or something.
Thank you.
All right.
I got one question here. On number 2, you said council will have extra responsibility of managing the venue.
Yeah,
Contradict kind of what Shane said, so.
but you're still, the counts, it's owned by the city, you'll still have to be checking up on that, you'll still have to be, checking in on that, watching it and things like that. That's still extra responsibility.
Well, that'll be our due diligence.
Yeah.
That's built in.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing, engaging with your city. I think it shows your love for the city. I think one of the things as we're kind of talking about this, the residents of Bryant have shown a willingness to reallocate, right? Bishop Park was a heavy lift. It added 50-cent sales tax for a specific purpose. And the residents of Bryant showed that, hey, you bring us something that we really believe in, we'll keep that going, okay? And I think that's that's part of the big question and what, as mayor, I've seen and heard from people in the city, is that you've brought us something we're really excited about, even though we've had to kind of change some directions. We like what you're talking about with this 50 cent. I haven't heard and wouldn't entertain as mayor a ballot initiative that wasn't like that, was a 50 cent towards general fund. I think this 50 cent sales tax, Bryant residents have shown a willingness to talk about and reallocate for something, a specific project, Bishop Park, the Parkway, fire stations, and some other. It's very specific, and I think part of that is that they have control over this, right? That we're bringing something to them that they get to say, yeah, we like that, do that, or no, you're not on the right track. And if we're not on the right track, they say no, and it goes away. So I really do appreciate your time and your effort, but just as mayor, I would say I wouldn't be willing to put this kind of initiative on the ballot, because I don't think it's anything Bryant residents would be for or would even pass.
Okay, and again, I'm not necessarily saying general fund, I'm saying is like being very open-ended. I'm just saying there's all these other funds, you could do whatever you want, water, waste, everything. It's just more of, there is this option.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming forward and presenting that option. Yeah, Jack?
Mayor, sorry, I just want to clarify one thing from your question. In 16, we're doing the same thing that we're doing now. In 16, the 16A bonds were refunding an issue, and it provided funds for park and recreation. That was done with taxable bonds. They paid off early because they paid off first. And then the second series was used for fire improvements and for streets. So I wanted to make sure I answered your question.
So we're kind of continuing the same pattern
Yes, sir.
that Bryant residents have said yes to in the past.
That's exactly right. I just wanted to
Thank you.
make sure you got the correct information. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you guys for your time. Any questions, comments from council?
No, I got Facebook.
Yeah, public comments. Any other public comments before we go? Again, tonight was about making sure you had plenty of information. I think we delivered. Chief Minden's face tells me we have. Rick Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor, I appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead and sign.
Just a few things I would like to add to assist in all the detail that Shane's been inundated with, and he certainly has. Because our company's been involved in 3 of these projects in various locations around the country, we also are a member of the National Independent Venue Association. I think that happened kind of by default. They pick up artists, booking and promotion companies, food and beverage, operators at large, developers, general contractors, specialty architect firms, and we become members by virtue of our being involved in some of these projects to a variety of degrees. And so our company also, because I guess kind of word got out that we're going to be a CMAR on this project, we've been inundated as well. It was kind of interesting that kind of once the Waltons left on the project, the phone rang, emails to our website, we were getting 10, 12, 15 a day. is there an opportunity for this, that, and of course, NEBA, the National Independent Venue Association, reached out to us quickly, and we just began to just send information over to the mayor and the chamber, and of course, that, we just inundated Shane with information. I saw it building up on him, and he had meeting after meeting and Zoom after Zoom. I don't know how he kept all of his other obligations going every day by virtue of all the information that we just sent him, or forward the folks on to him. A couple little things of interest that I'd like to point out, that Shane mentioned and you asked about the value of these properties. A few days ago, one of the guys on my team in our real estate department in Fayetteville in our company asked them to look into how are these properties that we have been involved in, how are some of these guys, the value of their properties proceeding? Are they rising like pretty much everything in America these days? What's going on with the values? Is it operator driven? Is it real estate based driven? What is it? So I just have two projects of interest. You might find this interesting. The House of Blues in Houston, Texas, we're involved in 2018 and 19. It was built and finished in 2020. Has a capacity of 2,000. I think it's also has some portability to it to increase it to 2,200. Project cost on that totaled out at $46 million. That in 2024 was sold to a private equity group called Mubadala, and they paid $65 million for it. And it's continued to operate, and I think they intend to expand it by vertical for additions. The Moody, a very popular location in Austin, Texas, where Austin City Limits moved its old venue to. That one, pretty fascinating place. Started out in 2021 when it finished. It started out with a capacity of 3,000, and now, interestingly, it's down to 2,200. They've made modifications by, I guess, some of these operator types and booking guys. And these artists kind of prefer the tight, the compactness of bringing those in a little bit. If I had my guess, I'd probably say they added additional food and beverage for income purposes. That facility was bought and closed in January of 24 by a group led by Matthew McConaughey, and they paid $135 million for that property. The National Independent Venue Association has asked us to pass on to Shane, and we have, or we will, that they have a waiting list of a variety of type of operators. Some of these facilities are operated, as it turns out, by multiple operators. Some have a food and beverage contract, some have a booking and promotions contract, some have a marketing contract, some have a building and maintenance and facility care contract. So they have a waiting list for these, and we'll send that over, and that waiting list is 311 companies. The word's out at NEBA. They know now there's a potential coming about one day of a facility in Bryant, Arkansas, and so this group will just continue to increase, and we will ask them to remove us from their notification calendar and our website, and we will begin to add yours. Another interesting tidbit: the cost of the factory in Chesterfield, Missouri, that is so incredibly popular and very recently completed, that Shane's dived in neck deep on. This facility is 52,000 square feet, has an adjustable capacity of 2,400 to 3,000. The hard and soft construction costs on it around about $25 million. Came out to about $481 a square feet. It sits on 12.1 acres, has an adjustable base stage of 60 feet deep up to 120 feet width. This property, some of my construction team a few months ago, I assigned some guys on our team, our director of construction and two of our project managers, who live every single day with finding materials and subtrades and operators of a variety of type to support our construction activities. I asked them to take this facility, contact the architects, see if they could get a set of the plans. They did, And I asked them to do a mock construction cost up on that for us for Central Arkansas. And interestingly enough, we came back and we just took we didn't take their exact square footage. We trimmed it down to 50,000 so we could get averages. They had some very peculiar, room addition aspects to theirs that we really didn't know what it was even for. And we came back to a cost of around $457 a square foot. That puts us, if in fact we repeated that, and I'm not suggesting we would, it'd be more up to the architecture and design team, certainly than us, albeit we'll have a seat at the table of that. We see that this, if you compare that to 50,000 square feet and you do the addition, I think Ted has some professorial type information in support of numbers similar to that. This puts us in the $22.5 to $24 million range for hard and soft costs. So I just want to put that out there that we feel like this, we've said all along, the mayor's asked, can you build this for $30 million? We'll build a $30 million facility is the answer to that question. And I think we're well within that. You asked about profitability and can it profit? I want to add just one tidbit. It's just, I live in Hot Springs. I don't have the luxury of living in Bryant. I wish I did. Maybe I can move someday. But if I were just a citizen, and as a councilman, you asked that question, I for one would be saying, because I would have the opportunity to visit that facility, then it is a success. We're all gonna pay sales tax, your citizens, tourists and visitors, up and down Interstate 30 alike. So we're all paying for it from that extent. Just by that standard, it's been met a success already. Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Rick. Other questions? Thanks, everybody. A lot of work went into this. A lot of research, a lot of time, a lot of phone calls. Thanks, everybody, for their hard work. Thank you, council, for your time between now and Thursday. If you got any questions, whatever you need to dive deep into details, we're here for you. All right, with that, let's adjourn. Thank you.